Hey everybody, it's Marisa Murgatroyd, founder of Live Your Message, and I'm so excited to be here today on our live Google Hangout on Air. So a huge thanks to Wendy Weiss over there for hosting me to all of you. This is probably the first time we're meeting, so I'm really excited to get to know you over the next hour and a bit and share some awesome training with you. So before we begin, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how a live Google Hangout on Air works in case this is your first time, and then hand it over to Wendy for some introductions. So if you've never been on a live streaming Google Hangout on Air, it does involve live streaming video. So if there's any kind of delay or lag in your internet, your audio or your video could freeze or pause for a moment. And the best way to solve that problem is to simply refresh your browser window. And most of the time, that just fixes the issue. And if for whatever reason you're having a bad internet day, sometimes technology doesn't want to work in your favor, don't worry, because there'll be a replay on this page as soon as the event is live, and you can come back and watch it once the event is over. But we definitely recommend, if you can, to stick around, because we're going to have a lot of fun together. We're going to have chat, we're going to have Q&A, and we've actually installed a live chat box to the right of this video. And all you got to do is log on with your social network of choice, Google Plus or Facebook or Twitter, and you can start commenting and let us know right now where you're coming in from. And I see we've got some people already who are kind of logging into the chat and saying hi. We've got Christine and Carol and Corazon and Dr. Victor, Bob, Pro Small Business, Doug, Sean, Sherry, lots of people saying hi already. So we love knowing where you're coming out from so we can get a sense of who's in the room. So over to you, Wendy.
Well, thank you, Marisa, and hello, everyone. I am so delighted that you could be here today, and I'm very excited about this training with Marisa Murgatroyd because one of the biggest questions that I'm asked all the time is, Wendy, how do I differentiate myself? How do I differentiate myself from everybody else in the entire world that is selling something that's similar? And the best way that I know to differentiate yourself is to tell your story. Each of you has your own unique story. Nobody else has it, just you. And when you share your story, that is what makes the difference. That is what differentiates you from everyone else in the entire world. So I twisted the arm of Marisa to get her here because she is the expert on storytelling. So I'm going to begin with the formal introduction of Marisa Murgatroyd, and she is the founder of Live Your Message. She shows entrepreneurs with a big message for the world how to build a lead brand and a lucrative web presence. She's 4'11½", so she is the shortest woman in marketing, but that does not stop her from having some huge ideas. She has a no-nonsense approach, and she has earned a reputation as a results getter for leading-edge clients like Don Crowther and Alexis Neely and Michelle Schnabel and Morgana Ray and Evan Markatz. So today, Marisa's passion and her purpose lies in helping emerging entrepreneurs launch themselves online through her signature training programs, Message to Money, Hidden Story Power, and the Superhero Summits. So she's also produced dozens of large-scale award-winning projects for clients like the Getty Museum, PBS, UCLA, the state of California. So she is an expert. And you're going to want to stay on to the very end to hear every single word that Marisa has to say about telling your story. And we will be taking questions at the end, which, as you all know, that's always my favorite part, and I know it's Marisa's favorite part as well. So we'll look forward to taking your questions at the end of today's training session. So I'm going to be quiet and welcome Marisa Murgatroyd. I'm turning everything over to you, Marisa.
All right, it's my favorite time. I guess it's showtime. So thank you so much, Wendy, for that amazing introduction. And I really 100% agree with you that one of the biggest ways to differentiate yourself in the market is by sharing your story, your background, why you do what you do. Because people want to work with other humans, especially in sales. And I know a lot of you are sales professionals or building your own business and hoping to get better at sales. So today what we're really going to do is talk about how really 6 easy ways to use your personal story to attract your ideal clients and really grow a passionate tribe around you. So I'm going to show you how to use story to transform your sales, your marketing, and your content. And my big promise to you is that by the end of this training today, you're going to learn not only how to find the right story to tell, that's going to help you cut through the noise in the marketplace and finally get noticed, but actually how to tell it in the right way. You know, in a way that's actually going to generate more customers and business than you ever thought possible. And all of this, even if you've never told a story before, or even if you've never really focused on making money online in your life. And I do tend to focus on how to do this online, but this works as well if you're doing sales calls and trying to build your business that way. Storytelling works across the board. So that's a big promise, and I'm super excited to see if we can accomplish it before this training is over. So I'm just going to dive in and get right to it. So I want to start by saying something that's going to be a little bit controversial. All right, here it is. People always say that content is king. And I want to be the first to come out and say that not only is content no longer king, but actually focusing on producing content could actually be holding you back from getting more customers and making more money. But not only that, it could actually be standing in the way of your ultimate success. So what do I mean when I say content? And that's a really good question, because content can be this catch-all word to describe everything that you create that attracts people to your website and to your business. It's the articles you write, the blogs you post, the videos you make, even your products and your services. So people are usually kind of shocked when I drop this on them because they think, what could be wrong with spending time creating great content? It's the stuff that you put your heart and your soul into, you know, the stuff that you're most proud of, right? So let me tell you a story. I consult with sometimes dozens of people every single month, and I diagnose the problems in their businesses. So people come to me with all kinds of businesses and with all kinds of problems. But the most common thing that I hear is that they're taking lots of action, but the results just aren't coming. You know, they're blogging, they're making videos, they're syndicating that content out across the web, they're doing social media. Basically everything the experts agree needs to be done to get the word out about a business so you can have more sales calls, so you can build your list, so you can have more people coming in your door. But something's going wrong. They can't seem to rise above the noise and stand out. So all that stuff that they're putting out into the world, it isn't getting them noticed, and most importantly, it's not generating the engagement that they were hoping for. So in other words, the little bit of traffic that they are getting to their website, it's not converting into customers and dollars. So what's going wrong? Why isn't our great content getting the attention that it deserves and generating the business that it really should? So I think the answer is simple. And again, this is going to go completely against everything that you've probably learned about how to succeed online. But it goes back to what I said at the start, which is more content is the last thing the world needs more of. You know, there are actually 634 million websites online today, and another 51 million new sites coming online every single year. So Google, and if you've been ever kind of gotten spun trying to figure out your search engine optimization, Google is basically nothing but this gigantic river of free, high-quality content. And millions of new pages a second are being added to its search index. Not to mention 100 hours of video that are being uploaded to YouTube each and every minute, and it's only accelerating from here on in. So in a world that's overflowing with great content and great marketing, the question is, why is your new article on how to do a tax return or how to find your life's passion, why is that ever going to be seen or get noticed among all of this content? So let's say for a moment that you do get lucky and you do stumble on just the right combination of keywords and other factors, and for whatever reason, Google puts your article on the first page and traffic starts to flow. So problem solved, right? You've got all the leads coming into your business that you need. Wrong. So let me tell you what happened when I actually got lucky and I won the Google lottery. So the most visited post on my website is 8 top market research questions. And that comes in at #1 on Google for the phrase market research questions. So in September of last year, that one post attracted almost 1,800 visits directly from Google. So it's an excellent, high-quality post, and people stay an average of 4 to 5 minutes reading it. So to get that sort of traffic from just a single blog post is really good. And I guess you could say I won the Google lottery because for whatever reason, it ranks high and people click on it. So what's the problem, you ask? Well, the problem is that 94% of those 1,800 visitors ended up bouncing off my website. So bouncing means that this is the page where they both enter and leave my website. They don't read on, they don't leave a comment, they don't even give me a like or a tweet, and they're clearly not interested in signing up for my list, getting on the phone with me, or buying anything from me. They just take my content and they leave. So depending on the industry or the subject matter, it's generally agreed that a bounce rate of 25 to 50% is considered normal, and 94% usually means that you're doing something wrong. So let's zoom out now and look at the 12-month trend on the post. So after 1 year, it now has over 21,600 visits, and it's generated just 28 likes, 9 tweets, and no comments, even worth reading. So that means that just 0.001% of visitors liked the page. In other words, for every 1,000 visits, just one person liked my page. Now that's not just bad, it's catastrophic. So what could be the reason for this? So let's go in order of what's going wrong and how we can fix it. So the article in question, it's seriously content rich, but that's exactly the problem, because so are every single one of the other 2 million content rich posts out there that contain the exact phrase market research questions. And I actually checked. So as a result, I look like everybody else. And because I'm giving the exact same information that you could find on a million other websites, people were treating my content like it had zero value. Almost like this disposable commodity they could consume and throw away. So looking at the post with a more critical eye, I noticed that I went straight into the how-to info, and I didn't give them any idea of who I am. It's like you on a sales call, right? Going straight for the sale without building rapport at the beginning, right? So this means that they weren't feeling any connection to me whatsoever. They had no reason to give back their attention or their engagement or go explore my site. So I like to call this wham bam thank you ma'am content marketing. And this is why most people struggle to get results online. They're so focused on giving great information, but they forget about how to get their readers to engage. So because I went straight to the how-to information, I also didn't connect these posts enough to my audience's emotions and what they were hoping to achieve in their lives or businesses. I didn't get them excited enough to go deeper or take action. And here's the thing, if you can't figure out how to get your readers to first engage, and second, know, like, and trust you, it doesn't matter how much traffic you're generating, you don't have a business. So what's the solution? How do you get people to engage? How do they start to know and like and trust you? Well, the answer to that question, to answer it, I really wanted to show you a different approach. And this is a recent video blog that I created. It's called Join the 30-Day Video Challenge. So I posted this really quickly. I didn't do any kind of keyword research at all. In fact, the post has very little content in it. Nothing which should have generated any traffic. It was just me telling a simple story about how I wanted to get better in front of the camera. And I invited the viewers to join me in a challenge to make one video a day over 30 days. That was it. So within 3 weeks of posting this, the video got around 1,400 views with 471 likes, 84 tweets, and 266 comments. That means that 33% of visitors liked my page. And if you compare that with the 0.0001% of the market research article, that's kind of amazing. So in other words, something like 33,000 times more people made the choice to engage with me in some way because of this article. So let me ask you a question. How many of you would love to have that kind of engagement on any post you wanted? So go ahead and type "me too" into the comments box, and I'll come back and take a look in just a moment. So what's even cooler is that of the 1,400 people who visited the page, over 300 people made the decision to take even more action by joining my 30-day challenge Facebook group and committing to filming themselves once a day for 30 days. And most of those 300 plus people even started to film themselves and post their videos on our private Facebook group. So what you can see on the screen is about 1/10 of one day's activity on the group at the start of May. And here's where it starts to get really crazy, and you can imagine the impact of this on your business too. So out of those 300 people who began filming themselves on a daily basis, 40 of them were so motivated that they actually followed through on the commitment of doing it every day for 30 days. That means 260 people dropped out during the challenge at some point. So we didn't measure exactly where each person dropped off, but for the sake of simplicity, we're going to say that 130 people got halfway. Now, I don't want to do any kind of crazy math here because I'm actually pretty bad at math, but assuming that each person spent 45 minutes making their video, here's the bottom line. It all works out to 170 people spending 141,750 minutes on this over the course of the challenge. And that means that I, little 4'11" me, was able to inspire 2,362 hours of energy, effort, and activity with the video that I spent 20 minutes making. So I'm sure I don't have to tell you how exceptional this is. And going back to the comments over there, I see you saying, me too, yes please, says Corazon, and Colin, and Time, and Sheldon, and Dennis, and Christine, and Date Night. I want to get to know you, Date Night, and Todd, and Dr. Victor, and Larry, and lots of other people say, me too. So you want to know how to do this, right? So let's frame this for you a little bit better and show you just how powerful storytelling can be in your business. So let me recap for a moment, and then we're going to drill down and show you step by step how you can do this too. So to recap, my top blog post attracts thousands of people a month, but struggles to inspire someone to even click the like button. And this silly little video that I made inspired 2,362 hours of sheer dedication and passion. And what's even crazier is that a lot of these people had never even heard of me before they stumbled onto that blog post. So I'm sure you'll agree that this is the jackpot of engagement, right? So exactly what did I do in that video that motivated a full third of the people who watched it to engage with me and take that kind of massive life-changing action? Simple. In the video, I did what almost nobody else does. I took the time to connect with my viewer and tell a story that connected them with me and with where they actually wanted to take their life and their business. And on the strength of that, they made the decision to take action in a huge way. So it's kind of humbling to realize that I was able to inspire this level of engagement simply by telling my story and opening myself up to my audience. And I can tell you that most of those 300 odd people who joined my challenge, they're going to be in my community for a long time. I think they'll even be my raving fans for life. And all I did was share a simple story about myself in a video blog that inspired them to take action on something that they wanted for themselves. So what does this tell you? It tells you that all that amazing content that you've been working on, it isn't going to get you where you need to go. It tells you that pure information alone does not and cannot tap into the emotions and won't inspire someone to take action because information alone doesn't stick. We forget it as soon as we've read it. We value what you bring to the information that only you can bring. So the truth is, if you want to build a loyal tribe who loves you and a customer base that wants everything you have to offer, if you want to have the authority and the income you deserve, if you're hungry to finally earn the recognition, influence, and income that you've been working toward, if you want to build an amazing business that can touch the lives of tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people, then you need to accept a hard truth. The market wants something different from us now. The market wants to hear your story, and they want to feel your humanity and see you open up. And I see Kevin in the chat said, I'm not sure that this is going to work for business-to-business sales. Is this geared for business-to-individual sales only? So Kevin, think about some of the biggest businesses on the planet. Think about, say, Virgin Atlantic and Richard Branson. Think about even Zappos. Think about Apple Computers, Steve Jobs. A lot of the biggest businesses on the planet that are selling business to business have powerful CEOs at the helm who are telling stories, who are sharing of themselves, who make their products seem like a more personal experience. So my background, I've got a lot of examples of how this works on an individual level, but I also sell business to business. We're a web design agency. So even if you are B2B, storytelling is going to set your market apart from everybody else, unless you're selling something super technical like screws or widgets or something, right, like that. If you want to be not in a commodity market, but a value market where your products are being sold not only because of the price tag on them, but because they can enrich somebody's lives, or you want to be able to charge a higher price tag, then this is relevant to you. And I see other people chiming in that this is definitely relevant to B2B. So in this presentation, I'm going to show you how to find your story and bring it out of you so that you attract people in droves who are going to pay attention, engage, stick around, and naturally become your clients and customers. Sound good? All right then, because before I go, I want to introduce myself. My name is Marisa Murgatroyd, and I founded Live Your Message to help entrepreneurs really translate their big message for the world into a leading brand and lucrative web presence that positions them as the #1 authority in their field so they can get more customers, have more impact, and really find the freedom that they've been looking for. So in my previous career, I was an award-winning documentary filmmaker, and for 8 years I worked with people to find the stories hiding inside of them. If there's one thing that's become clear to me through this work, it's that there are stories everywhere. There are stories inside of everyone. And it's easy to inspire people to action when you tell them stories, as we've just seen. You just need to find the right story and tell it in the right way so it's relevant to your business. Whatever you're selling, whether it's B2B, B2C, whatever. So I put pictures here on the screen of my team. We've got Murray, Lorraine, Candace, Jamie, Sophia, Chris, Moss, Seth, and Farhan, plus 3 more designers. So my husband, Murray, is my business partner, and he's the person who really inspired me to start telling my story. You know, to not just focus on everybody else's stories, but to really hunker down, step up, and tell my story. And he convinced me that the world wanted to know who I was. You know, the world wants to do business not just with call centers or machines or faceless companies. The world wants to do business with other people. So he really convinced me the world wanted to know who I was and why I do what I do. And he's behind the scenes today running the technology and the slides for this event. And the thing that's brought in the revenue to hire this amazing team has been me stepping up and realizing that the highest and best use of my time as the CEO of this business, it's not just managing my business, but it's setting and holding the vision. So that means that I'm free to be the storyteller in chief, making sure that everything we do aligns with the stories that we tell ourselves every single day. The stories that keep us happy and motivated, and the stories that I share with my tribe so they feel connected, inspired, and engaged. So that's great, you might be thinking. I want people to feel connected and inspired and engaged, but I also want them to take action and buy my stuff too. So how does telling a story help them do that? So to answer that, let me ask you a question. Did you know that the most successful sales letter of all time was a story? It was a sales letter that sold subscriptions for the Wall Street Journal. And believe it or not, in 30 years, it's earned the journal over $2 billion. That's billion with a capital B. And it was just a simple story. When you think about the Wall Street Journal, what do you actually think about, right? You don't think about storytelling. You think about numbers and number crunching and headhunters and hedge funds and stocks and all that kind of stuff. But you don't think about stories. So that's a huge reason why this story stood out in the marketplace and still does. So here's how it went. On a beautiful late spring afternoon, 25 years ago, 2 young men graduated from the same college. They were very much alike, these 2 young men. Both had been better than average students. Both were personable, and both, as young college graduates are, were filled with ambitious dreams for the future. Recently, these men returned to their college for their 25th reunion. They were still very much alike. Both were happily married, both had 3 children, and both, it turned out, had gone to work for the same Midwestern manufacturing company after graduation, and were still there. But there was a difference. One of the men was manager of a small department of that company. The other was its president. And of course, it turned out that the manager of the department didn't read the Wall Street Journal, and the president did. So it's a simple 2-page letter, and it's a story. So this letter was written by a man named Martin Conroy, and it became what the Wall Street Journal called the Control. It was used continuously for 30 years. All the while, these young copywriters tried to beat the results of this letter. It was a 2-page letter. They tried writing longer letters about the benefits of reading the Wall Street Journal, and they failed. They tried more classic sales letter stuff with headlines and specific promises about what would happen to people if they read the Wall Street Journal, but it didn't succeed. And then one day, the letter that told the story of the 2 men was finally beaten. So this copywriter came along and he wrote a new letter that started bringing in more money. So do you want to know what was in that letter? It was actually based on the same story, and it opened in the same way. So all he did was expand that story from a 2-page letter into a 4-page letter. He made the story longer. So there's no doubt, when used correctly, storytelling is a powerful tool for influencing people to buy from you. So how the heck does it work? What's going on in people's minds as you tell your story that has the power to influence them? So researchers have found that there are actually 5 specific reasons why stories always beat out traditional selling techniques. So number 1, stories aren't threatening and they can help bypass resistance. When we read web pages that are designed to sell us something, we read them with a certain amount of resistance to the claims, the promises, the numbers, right? But when we hear a story, we're free to open up and regress back a little to a simpler time, when our parents and teachers were telling us stories, a time that felt more innocent, kind, and loving. So when you tell someone a story, it lets them rest assured that they're not being sold to or threatened in any way, and also helps them put aside any suspicions they may have about you. Case in point, how did you feel when you heard that Wall Street Journal story opening on a beautiful late spring afternoon 25 years ago? Didn't you just feel your body kind of relax and your mind open up a little? Number 2, stories are interesting. We all want to know what happens in a story. So in our Wall Street Journal letter, both were happily married, both had 3 children, and both, it turned out, had gone to work for the same Midwestern manufacturing company after graduation and were still there. But there was a difference. So you're curious now, right? You just have to hear what the difference was. Number 3, stories are by default emotional. We're emotional animals that use logic to justify our decisions after the fact. So traditional marketing has a really hard time engaging people's emotions, but stories, they're nothing but emotion, which makes them the perfect way to influence people's decisions and inspire them into action. So let me ask you, do you think that all those millions of people over the years who subscribed to the Wall Street Journal did so because of the Wall Street Journal's superior coverage, or because they wanted to be the president of that company someday, like the character in the story? Which leads us to number 4. Stories tap into the creative part of the brain. When we're being told a good story, things inside of our brains change kind of dramatically. Our brains actually fire up and get excited, like when we were kids and our parents would read to us. So during story time, not only is the languaging processing center of our brain activated, but also every other area of our brain that we'd use when experiencing firsthand the events of the story. So in other words, our brain actually experiences the story as if it were actually happening to us too. So research actually shows that our brain literally can't distinguish between a story of something and the real event itself. And because it engages so much more of the brain than a traditional sales message, we internalize it and remember it. And because of that, we're much more likely to take action. Number 5, stories teach through analogy, which correlates with how we learn. So it's about being able to make a connection between something outside of us to something that we're familiar with. So often stories tap into this natural tendency by sharing moments that relate to situations in our lives and the struggles that we face daily. So for example, have you ever identified with a character in a story that kind of went against the flow? Well, people often identify and relate to the main character in a story and the events that they're faced with. So when you tell someone a story, they automatically become more involved in what you're saying and what you're teaching. So for example, you talk about your sister, and I'm automatically going to think about my brother. It's not something that we consciously do. In fact, it's something that we can't avoid. We're there with you in your story, and thanks to that, stories enable us to make change, real personal change in our lives, in the direction the story pulls you. So I have students and clients who remember stories that I told literally years ago. And that's kind of remarkable, because most marketing and sales letters, they're forgotten as soon as they're read. But when someone tells you a good story, you remember that story long afterwards. Think back to the last time that you felt real emotion toward a business or a brand. Was it because they had awesome features and benefits? Or was it because they told you a story that bypassed your resistance, tapped into your emotions, and helped you see yourself kind of differently? So think back to the last time that you felt really moved to take action, like my audience who committed to filming themselves once a day for 30 days, or standing in line at midnight to buy something. Was it a sales page that convinced you, or was it because of a story that got inside and wouldn't let go? I really hope that you're starting to get why you need to be telling stories in your business. So if so, the question now becomes, how do you go about finding the stories to tell? Where are they hiding and how can you get at them? A lot of people believe they don't have a story. So in just a second, I'm going to ask you a few simple questions that no one's probably ever asked you before that's going to help you find that story hiding inside of you, that's going to resonate with your market in the biggest way possible and still be really authentically aligned with who you are and why you do what you do. So here are my 8 questions. And don't worry about writing down all these questions. Instead, as I read them out, just listen. Pay attention only to the few questions that you resonate with, because within those questions lie a powerful personal story that's all yours. Within the questions that you resonate with lies a story that's actually been right underneath your nose for a long time, probably. A story that you've either forgotten or ignored, or maybe just assumed that people wouldn't be interested in. You're actually going to find that the opposite is true. So answer just one or more of these questions in an honest way, and you'll have a powerful story that we're going to listen and respond to. So with that in mind, here we go. Question number 1. How did you make the choice to do what you're doing? Question number 2. What do you love to do most, and why do you love it? Question number 3. Were you dissatisfied with the status quo in some particular field and want change? Question number 4. What big problem do you have a solution for? Question number 5. What's at stake? What's the cost of not fixing this now to you, your customers, or to society? Question number 6. If you could only share one thing with the world, what would it be? Question number 7. What was your lowest point or greatest challenge? Question number 8. What's your greatest success or accomplishment? So I'm going to give you just a few seconds now to think about these questions before we continue. All right, so how did that go for you? I know it's not enough time, but you always have more time later. Let me give you a few examples of how some of my Hidden Story Power students not only answer these questions, but use them as a springboard for their stories and their business success. So you have some inspiration to follow. So Anna Graham Hunter is a career happiness coach, and she found her story by answering the question, how did you make the choice to do what you're doing? And this is how her story goes. Several years back, a horrible boss screamed at me so loud that I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. And that was it. I quit. Without any job lined up, I gave my notice and I was gone in 2 weeks. So this is how Anna finally realized that she was in the wrong job and how she forced herself to make a huge change in her life through a snap decision. She continues on to describe how her life completely transformed in an inspirational way after making the decision. Then she draws it to a close in a way that connects with her audience and what they want in their own lives. So here's her ending. Why am I telling you this? I don't want you to have to wait until something horrible happens to start taking charge of your career. I don't want you to feel stuck where you are and like you don't have a choice. Like career happiness is for other people, but not for you. I don't want you to have to wait to start living. Do you see how powerful this is? When I first started working with Anna, she was telling her personal story as this big, broad career trajectory rather than leading with a specific event, and people were just tuning out. So the difference between the two stories, it's night and day. One captured the emotion in a way that we can relate to our own lives. We've all probably had a horrible boss at some point, maybe we still do, and we all know that feeling of hating a job, right? And the other story read more like an emotionless bio, and we automatically tune out. So Anna filmed herself telling her story and put it on her homepage, and needless to say, people are responding to the new Anna much more than they did to the old Anna. And they're liking, they're tweeting, they're sharing, and best of all, they're coming to her ready to do business. Not asking about price, but really kind of talking about how great things are going to be once they've purchased and implemented her training. So all she had to do was tell the right story in the right way. So tell me, how did you finally make the choice to make a change or to do what you do? If there's any emotion behind the moment when you made your decision or emotion in the transition, then there's a powerful story that we want to hear. So for Hidden Story Power student Diana Setman, the most important of those 8 questions was question number 7. What's your greatest success or accomplishment? So Diana's greatest accomplishment was giving birth to a beautiful baby boy after a divorce, after finding her soulmate, after 3 years of trying to conceive, after 2 years of infertility treatment, and 2 rounds of IVF. So in her own words, after going through so much trouble having my baby, I simply was not ready to let him go. I needed the flexibility to be the mom that I wanted to be while still being of service to the world in a way that was meaningful to me. So on my search for a new professional path, I came across baby signing, and I immediately knew that it had my name written all over it. So I've been passionate about communication all my life, and baby sign language empowered my son to communicate with me in a way I was able to understand. He hardly ever cried because he's always been able to express himself very well, and it made me feel so much more confident and relaxed about being a mom. In fact, I love it so much that now I help mamas empower their babies to communicate in a way so that they can experience the world as a place where their thoughts and feelings matter, that the mamas can connect with their babies on a much deeper level, and that they can feel more confident and relaxed about their parenting. So this led Diana to do whatever it took to build a business so she could work from home, because after having been through hell to have her son, she didn't want to put him back in daycare for 8 hours a day. She wanted to be the central part of his daily life and watch him grow while still building something that reached beyond her family. So what does this story have to do with business? Well, Diana clearly understands the challenges of running a business while being a mom to a young child. So if she used the story on her website, don't you think that it would resonate kind of big with other moms in her target market? Do you think that this story would be a powerful reason that they would do business with her? Do you think that they imagine that she knows what they're going through on a daily basis? Yes, yes, yes. So if this question of why do you do what you do resonates with you, then tell me, what is it? So before we move on, I want to give you 3 important insights. First, a lot of people think storytelling in business is ineffective for the simple reason that most people who tell stories tell really boring stories that their audience just don't relate to. Second, I hope you can see that if you tune into these 8 questions and pay attention to what really resonates with you and dig down, you'll find a story inside of you that's going to be not only interesting to your audience, but have them engaging and taking action with you, whatever action it is that you want them to take. Third, I want you to understand that you don't need hundreds of stories to tap into the power of story in your business. You just need one good story to take your business to the next level and beyond. But don't ever forget that not everybody is going to respond in the same way to each story. People respond differently depending on what emotions that you're touching on in your story. For example, for people who'd like to lose weight, often self-identity is the most important driving emotion for them. They don't necessarily self-identify with being overweight. They see their true selves as healthy and attractive, or at least as more than the first impression that people have of them. So what about people who teach yoga? They're about providing care, healing, and happiness. The same in the healthcare industry, or anybody selling kind of medical supplies, right? So a futurist named Rolf Jensen identified the 6 different driving emotions that will spur people to action without fail. So Jensen called these emotional markets. So think of emotional markets like shortcuts for really making people care about market for your audience is going to help you inspire an unbelievable level of passion for you and for your story. So get your pen and paper ready, and I'm going to talk about my favorite 3 of the 6 emotional markets, and this is how you actually tie your story to the business that you're in. So it's not just an unrelated stories, okay? And then I'm going to give you some really good case studies of how people have used these markets to grow huge and lucrative followings, and some of my formulas for using them in your business too. So the first emotional market that I'm going to talk about is called togetherness, friendship, and love. So this may seem like a bit of a soft topic, but I want to tell you it's one of the most powerful emotional triggers there are yet. So let me give you an example of a story that's become the foundation of a $10 million a year business empire. So I'm just going to read the end of the story, and I bet that a few of you will be able to identify the author right away. That's how recognizable stories are. We must have flipped in slow motion 2 or 3 times, over and over again. And then nothing. Silence. We'd landed. I could see the moon shining through the small opening that was where the windshield used to be. All I could feel was a sudden urge to pull myself out of the car. I gripped what was left of the windshield as best I could, and I levered myself out. I remember screaming at Kevin to get out of the car. Somehow I found myself standing on the hood of the car. I looked up at the moon. It was one of those moons that was so big and so full and so beautiful that you find yourself wondering, why is it so big and so full and so beautiful? Then I looked down and I saw my blood all over the car, bright red trailing down my arm, so much life leaving my body. That's when I was certain I was about to die. Images of my family and my friends and my lovers, they all came flooding through my mind at once. All of the moments and people I had cherished. And in that moment, I wondered to myself if I'd lived fully. I wondered if I'd loved. I wondered if I'd even mattered. And you know what? I wasn't happy with the answer. Anyone guessed it yet? Anyone know whose story this is? Yes, it's Brendon Burchard. And this dramatic moment has turned into a story that Brendon tells every chance he gets, at every event, in every book, in every product. So simply by sharing his story in the simple message, did I live fully? Did I love openly? Did I matter? Brendon was able to turn a moment that on its face seems to have nothing whatsoever to do with his business into a story that's built a $10 million a year business empire that has inspired thousands of experts and entrepreneurs around the world to make a difference with their knowledge and advice. So congrats, Kevin, for naming the storyteller. So the second emotion and desire market that I want to talk about is care, healing, happiness, and balance. So believe it or not, my chiropractor has an amazing story that completely changed the way I see him. It goes like this. It was in 1993. I was in school at UCSB preparing for a career in music when I got in a car accident. I wasn't badly injured, but a few weeks later, while carrying the drums, I fell over. It made a huge racket and my friends thought I was joking around, but my legs were completely paralyzed. A few hours later, I was walking again, but it happened the next time I tried to carry my drums, and the next. That's when I knew there was a serious problem. I didn't know what was going on, and to be honest, I was really scared. So a friend referred me to a local chiropractor, and that's when the miracle happened. Within 12 weeks of starting treatment, the problem went away, and I found I could carry anything I wanted without problem. So because of that experience, I became totally fascinated with the body's ability to heal itself. And that's why I decided to abandon my music studies and became a chiropractor. I wanted to help as many other people heal themselves and live life without drugs and pain. So when they hear this story, patients always have the same reaction. Wow, I had no idea you actually understood what I was going through, that you'd lived this yourself. They could really feel how much he cared. And that's how Dr. Kenji realized that he'd been approaching his marketing all wrong, and what he needed to do became as clear as day. He'd been wasting time telling people about his low introductory processes, his prices, his modern equipment, and his welcoming staff, when it turns out that people were far more interested in his story. So the goal is to tell a story that does the work of selecting your customers for you. This means that you need to turn off at least as many people as you turn on. If you can succeed in doing that, then the way is clear for you to be loved. Apple Computer, Their first ads were against the PC. They were all about kind of alienating what they saw as the pencil pusher set in favor of the cultural creatives. They turned people off so the people that they really wanted to attract would fall in love with them. So the third emotional market that I wanted to mention is peace of mind, permanence, and nostalgia. So for this market, I want to introduce you to Chad Robertson. So he's a baker in San Francisco. And back in 2010, his business, it was kind of struggling. And he just didn't really know what to do about it. He was great at what he did, and everybody agreed he had really good bread. But something wasn't quite right. When he got into the business, he just figured out that all he had to do was be awesome at what he did, and people would come. But it didn't turn out that way. Does anyone relate to that? Anyway, Chad had two secret weapons: his passion for what he did and his story. So one day, some of his friends turned up with a camera and filmed a single short video where Chad simply talked about the simplicity and the beauty of bread. He talked about how he learned to make bread from a French master baker in the countryside of Brittany in France. He talked about bread the way that some people talk about sunsets. And in the video, he let his naked, unabashed passion for bread shine through. So he answered the question number one of our 8 questions from earlier: what do I love the most, and why do I love it? And his answer connected to the simple act of making this most basic food, reminding us of simpler times when our parents or our grandparents still made bread. And the result, it changed the course of his business forever, because it quickly and easily accomplished a couple of very important things. And if you could use more fans for your business, more customers, then pay attention here. By the end of that simple video, I had emotionally connected with Chad and his message. He turned me into a bread-making fan, and I even bought his book. So even though there was no hint of a sales pitch in the video, and even though I had pretty much zero interest in making bread at the time, so here's the upshot. As a simple result of this video, his cafe is now full 7 days a week. It's bustling with people who love his story and what he stands for. So people now make a pilgrimage to his bakery because he told his story. His business is not only making more than double the profits, but it's worth a whole lot more than it was before too. And all this was accomplished even though Chad thought he didn't have a story worth telling. It was nothing special to him. And even though he didn't think anyone would be interested. So the mere act of telling the only story he had changed everything for Chad's business. So it really doesn't matter the story you tell, because as humans, we're hardwired to react emotionally. It's biology. Your story is going to draw us in, inspire us, and make us feel part of something special. So whether the story comes from a person, a storybook, a nonprofit, a big brand like Apple, or a simple baker. So as you're starting to see, if you want to go deeper, if you want to inspire people to take action, then you have to tell stories that tap into the emotional markets. The best stories tap into the emotional market that's the most appropriate for your audience's values and aspirations, as well as their wants and needs and desires. And on top of that, there's another important lesson here too. And that is that most businesses neglect to tell stories because they make the critical mistake of thinking that people are just naturally going to get why what you do is so important. But when you leave out story, you only achieve a fraction of the results of which you're capable. The reality is that your customers need a story to help them understand why what you're doing is important. They can't figure it out on their own. So if you've got strong beliefs or convictions, like any of the businesses that I've mentioned today, then what's actually stopping you from telling a story that's going to resonate with the small but powerful part of the marketplace who are destined to be your fans? But what if you still have no idea what your story could be? Maybe you say, Marisa, I've never gone to Africa and found my life purpose. I don't have a dramatic car crash story like Brennan Burchard. Nothing special's ever happened to me. So here's the thing, and it's really funny. Most people either don't think they have a story, or they don't think that anybody cares about their story. So my advice is to relax and to just start talking. I never thought I had a story either until about 3 or 4 years ago when I found myself at Bo Eason's story event. And from those of you who don't know him, Bo Eason went from NFL football star to Broadway star on the strength of his personal story. And the idea behind the event is that we'd each get up on stage, tell our story, and get some one-on-one coaching from Bo personally on how to tell it better. So I had no idea what I was going to talk about. I mean, I made a living from helping other people tell their stories, but telling my own story, well, that was a whole different thing. But I got up there anyway, and I told the only story I could think of. I told the story of my kind of difficult relationship with my dad. You know, nothing dramatic like a car accident or a mental breakdown. I just got up and talked about my relationship with my dad and how it affected me when I was growing up. Even though I thought I didn't have anything to talk about, I just talked anyway. I just talked and I talked, and when it was done, it's like I refocused on the room full of people in front of me. And everything had changed. People were coming up and they were thanking me for my bravery in sharing. They told me they'd had a similar relationship in their lives and that my story had helped them. They were asking for my business cards. I picked up a bunch of new clients and fans that very day. It was kind of crazy. So a friend filmed me on stage and I sent this video out to my list. And at the time, I think I had less than 600 people following me. And I got dozens of comments on YouTube, on Facebook, on my blog, email, everywhere. Comments were coming in. And what happened then was even more crazy. People started liking and commenting and sharing like crazy. Even people that I'd never heard from before started connecting and saying kind of nice things to me, which I like. You know, things like, Marisa, thank you for your courage to put it all out there in living color. You're being a source of inspiration for me and others to put our life message out there. You rock. Marisa, watching this made me cry and cringe both from reliving my own pain and feeling incredibly empowered and inspired. I never thought I could truly inspire anyone with my story, but watching you share yours let me look at the big picture. Thank you. So simply by telling my story and sharing it, the engagement on my site in an email, it went through the roof. So now I'm getting like 30 to 50 likes in every blog post. I mean, you can see it right there on my website. A huge amount of comments. And I've got people interacting with me who'd never said a word before. And this continued over the next several months. You know, I'd run into people and they'd tell me they watched that video and it totally changed their perspective of me and made them understand me for the first time. And it helped them with an issue that they'd been struggling with as well. So a year and a half later, I still have people telling me they saw that video. And all this just confirmed something that I knew all along. I had to put more of me into my work. You know, I kind of knew intellectually that I should tell my story and share more of myself, but I also felt like it got in the way. You know, I'm kind of a nerd, and I thought people were following me because of my content and my ideas. But in the aftermath of that one video, I realized I was wrong. You know, I've gone from not even believing I had a story to knowing that stories are everywhere in my life and that all I need to do is tell them. So the year that I started telling stories in my business, our revenue tripled. And this year it's on track to at least double, if not triple again. So 4 years ago, I was working a job at a nonprofit at $58,000 a year. You know, 3 years later, we're poised to cross the $1 million mark simply by telling stories everywhere in my business. So despite the fact that my story was kind of simple, it wasn't really tied into my business at first, it still had an amazing response from my audience. It brought me new clients and allowed me to raise my prices over and over again. So as you can see, what wasn't important was how simple or boring I thought my story was. What mattered was that I simply start to tell it and allow my audience to make the all-important connections in their own lives. Because as we discovered when we talked about why story is so effective, people will always make their own connections with your story in ways that you can't control. And that's where the magic lies. All right, so we've already covered a lot of ground today, and this might be a great moment to stop, pause a second, and recap what we've covered so you don't miss anything, okay? So far today, we've covered why content is no longer king and why it's holding back your growth and success. Why using story not only lifts you above the competition and gives people a great reason to listen to what you have to say, but why using story helps people to bypass the usual suspicion and resistance that they have to being sold. It allows people to tap into the creative part of our brain that encourages taking action and making change and inspires them to join your audience and invest in you. So on top of that, I gave you the best 8 questions to ask to discover the stories hiding deep inside of you, plus the 5 rules of why stories work, with the example of the story that's earned over $2 billion over 30 years. We also covered the emotional markets, the shortcut to inspiring people to take immediate, massive action. Plus, I showed you how storytelling has completely transformed not only my own business, but the businesses of those entrepreneurs who are using them. Of course, there's a lot more to telling your story in a way that leaps off the screen and captivates your audience than I could share with you today. There's also a lot more to using storytelling in business than just telling your personal story. So as much as I'd like to, I can't cover everything in an hour. So what I'd like to do next is answer the biggest questions, the FAQs that I usually get about storytelling. And these are the questions that you may be asking yourself right now. So because these are the questions that often stop people from telling their story before they even get started, and I really don't want anything to stop you from sharing your story with the world and really attracting the customers who resonate with you. So specifically, you might be asking yourself right now this question: how is my story relevant to my market? How is my story relevant to my business? Do you remember Brendan Burchard's story about a car wreck? Nothing to do with business, but he tied it in with Jensen's emotional market, togetherness, friendship, and love. And like voila, he's got this story that's helped him build a $10 million a year business. What about Diana Setman? What does this story about building a business while keeping her children at home have to do with anything? Simple. It taps into the third emotional market, providing and receiving care, by allowing busy moms to see how they can build their business while taking care of the most important thing in their lives, their children. So this story generates huge rapport with her target market and gives them a huge reason to do business with her. So when I told the story of my relationship with my dad, even though it had nothing to do with business per se, I tied it into emotional market number 1 at the end by saying, if I learned anything from my dad, it's this: you can't just have a pie-in-the-sky dream and fantasize about this life that you want to live for yourself. Nobody cares about your life purpose if you don't step up to learn the tools and strategies that you need to create your own success. Then your dream doesn't matter to anyone. So if there's one thing I've learned, it's how to do that. So now what lights me up is the fact that we all have the potential and the tools and the resources and the freaking internet to connect our message to everybody on the planet. And I love that. So the question I have for you is, what do you want to do with your life, and are you ready to make it happen? So you see, most great stories aren't business stories. They're just tied in well at the end to one of Jensen's emotional markets, so they become relevant to your business. Now let me tell you a story about one of my most popular emails ever. So I wanted to send something out to my list to promote my new blog that was about the 3 things the best business websites do. But I knew that if I just sent an email telling people to go to the blog, that the response would have been kind of pitiful, right? Because as we've discovered today, nobody's got time for dry facts and dry information, but we've always got time for a story. So I told a story, and the story I told had precisely nothing to do with business. In fact, it was about a trip to the grocery store. And at the end of the story, I tied in my business takeaway with one of the emotional markets, and my readers just went nuts for it. I got more replies from that email than any other I've ever sent. So the subject line of the email was how gelato can fix your website, true story. And this one email had a 24% open rate, and 44% of the people who opened the email clicked through to read my blog post. And that's really good, by the way. So without a doubt, the story is responsible for the success of the email. Without it, I would have gotten just a fraction of the response. So in a world with less and less attention to spare, stories inspire action and engagement more than any other tactic. Still, another question you might be asking yourself is this: who cares about my story anywhere? It's common to think that no one cares about your story, or to ask, who am I to share my story? And the reality is that we're infinitely curious about each other's lives. We find ourselves sitting in traffic wondering about the people around us. Who are they really? What are they about? And the truth is, for some people, it's not easy to share your story. It's not easy to get that real, that personal, and that vulnerable. To show yourself to the world warts and all. We're taught to lead from our strength. We're taught to put on our poker face. So we hide from our past, and we get hung up on appearances and worry people are going to judge us in what we've been through, or we're afraid of hurting someone with our story. And that was a big one for me. So this may seem paradoxical, but sharing your story is one of the most selfless things that you can do, because it's telling the world, I'm willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to reveal my inner struggle. I'm willing to share my challenges and frustrations, the mistakes I've made, and the times when I haven't had it all together, in the hopes that my story can light the way for someone else, or give them hope that they can do it too. And there's nothing more trustworthy in business than someone who's in integrity, someone who's true to themselves and transparent. And by telling your story without holding anything back, you almost magically become that person. So once you accept that people really do care about you and your story, a new question rises to the surface. And it's this: won't people judge me if I tell my story? And I hate to break it to you, but you're already being judged. You can't walk down the street without being judged. And the fact is that the more you express yourself through your business, the more you'll be judged. People will write to you and tell you they don't like your word choice, or they were offended by your email subject line. And I get these kinds of notes from time to time, and yet here you are, 200 of you listening to me. So several hundred of you have shown up to listen to me, right? And the reality is that if you dare to tell your story, you're going to win 10 fans for every feather you ruffle. And the more you dare to be you in your business, the more you allow people to fall in love with you and your business. Because that's what happens when you tell your story. People fall in love with you. They trust you. And those who don't resonate, they're just going to go away. And that's what you want, because that allows you to focus on the people who were really listening and interested. So I know this is a difficult question, but are you willing to take the risk of not being liked? Because if you are, then that clears the way for you to be loved. So as Marcia Wader of Dream University says, in business you've got to toughen your skin and soften your heart. And finally, the last question I often get is this: my story involves other people. How do I tell my story without embarrassing or hurting them? The issue is a tricky one, and it prevented me from telling my story for a long time. And that's the concern, that telling your story may hurt someone who is involved in that part of your life. But the story I told on stage at Bo Eason's event involved my dad, how he raised me and what he hoped I'd do in my life. I finally made the decision to tell the story, but I didn't want to hurt him, so I actually unsubscribed my dad from my email list when I sent it out, so he wouldn't know. But of course he saw the video anyway. There's no hiding these kinds of things, and it did lead to an uncomfortable conversation, but ultimately I feel much freer and more authentic for having gotten it out. It's really allowed our relationship to grow in a way that it wouldn't have if I kept it all to myself. So at the end of the day, you need to make a choice about how open and vulnerable that you want to be in your business. Because oftentimes our most painful moments, our mistakes, our challenges, give our audience the greatest bridge to connect with us, and more importantly, to connect with their better selves. So you're now in a great place to finally step off the content treadmill and step into the spotlight by telling the stories that will lift you above the noise and into that 1% of online businesses who get the premium clients, the exposure, the coverage, the book deals, the stages, the authority, the huge success, the big corporate customers, whatever that means for you. So let me ask you one important question before we finish up. Based on the 8 questions that I gave you earlier, do you think that you could find a story as simple as Brendan's to tell your audience? So if you answered yes, then congratulations. You're on your way to creating a valuable asset that's going to transform your business by bringing in a flood of new, engaged, and passionate customers. And you're on the brink of inspiring your followers into action, inspiring them to engage with you, and inspiring them to spread the word for you. But in just an hour, I couldn't cover everything you need to know about telling your story in your business. And let's be frank with each other. What you've gotten today is just a taste of what story can do for you. It's going to take you more than just one session to really dig into this story thing and figure out exactly how to use it in your business. You still need to know some things. What if you feel like you've got that story inside of you, but you still don't know what it is? How do you recognize the parts of your life that will work best as stories and have universal appeal? What are all the different places in your business you can and should be telling stories? Because you can't tell the exact same story in the exact same way in all the different areas of your business and get results. So how do you pick the right stories and adapt them to each part of your business? What's going to have the most impact and where? What are the best structures to use for your stories to maximize interest, attention, engagement, and ultimately sales? What are the words you should use that actually pack the biggest emotional kind of punch, that grip heartstrings and inspire action? What are the words you should never use? How do you end your story in a way that inspires your audience to sign up and take any other action you want? How do you get your story onto video powerfully, even if you've never made a video before in your life? Or how do you get it into a presentation you make in front of a corporate audience or on stage? How do you chunk down your stories for bite-sized consumption in email and social media? So that's why we've created an in-depth training on all of this called Hidden Story Power that not only answers all these questions and more, but gathers together a community of people who are all using story in their business and who can help support and uplift you to a level of success that you didn't even think was possible. So with your permission, I'd like to take just 3 to 5 minutes to tell you about the program. And if you're ready to build your audience, build your customer base, and transform your business with the power of your story, then I'd love to have you join us. And right after that, I'm going to move on to Q&A because I want to answer any and all questions that you have about story and business, and I've been watching them come through, and I'm excited to answer them, and specifically about how to use it to build your audience and transform your business, and of course about the program itself too. So when you join me in Hidden Story Power, you're going to get 6 tightly scripted video training sessions covering everything that we know about story and how to use it in your business. So here's what you're going to learn. In session number 1, The Secret Life of Your Story, we'll be covering why story is so vital, why it works in any industry, whether that's B2C, B2B, you name it, why it's applicable to anyone who's in business, and how to use your story to position you to maximum effect as the natural leader of your field or industry, even if you're in a crowded space. In session 2, Uncovering Your Hidden Story, this is for you if you're having trouble thinking about what your stories could be. So in this session, I'm personally going to guide you through a series of quick but powerful exercises designed to uncover all of the powerful and unique stories that are hiding inside of you that are going to grip heartstrings and demand to be heard. You'll understand why tapping into your backstory gives you huge credibility and how to choose the right story for your tribe. So I know you're going to be wowed by this process. We go a lot deeper than we did today, even if you're still not sure what your story is. Then in session 3, Expressing Your Hidden Story, I'm going to pull the natural storyteller out of you. So as a seasoned documentary filmmaker, I'm going to give you the essential tools to actually structure and language, tell your story so it can't be ignored. I'm going to guide you through how to viscerally move people, forcing them to make a choice about you. And those who choose yes, they're going to feel compelled to take action, filling your business with loyal fans and customers who just can't stop referring you. In session 4, Capturing Your Hidden Story on Video, I pull out all my guerrilla documentary filmmaker secrets for you and show you how to get super comfortable on camera and create powerful videos out of your story that are guaranteed to move people regardless of whether you have any experience in front of the camera or not. In fact, the techniques that I'm going to teach you work best if you don't have a lot of experience because I'm revealing techniques that go against a lot of conventional wisdom and take advantage of your authenticity to make a video that can create movements and tribes around practically any topic, subject, or niche, even yours. So I'm going to show you my best ultra cheap and free shooting solutions. Then in session 6, Sharing Your Hidden Story in Email and Social Media, you're going to learn that success with social media doesn't depend on running expensive ads or spending hours on social media or pestering friends and family and colleagues to like your stuff. Plus, you won't have to create endless amounts of content and videos like some people will tell you. In this session, you'll get access to our latest research on how to chunk down your story for social media to have your audience liking, tweeting, and virally sharing your story with the world, so they engage more and more and more. Finally, in session 6, Creating Talks, Trainings, and Info Products that Stick, I'm going to show you how to wrap your trainings in story in a way that has your students have 3 times better recall of what you said. Plus, we'll talk about how to use story to be inspirational, memorable, and fun, making you the trainer or speaker they love. Just for these sections, these 6 sessions, and we haven't even gotten to the best part yet, what would you expect to invest in something like this? Would it be $2,000? It should be, because no doubt there's at least 10 times the value to your business of a $2,000 course in this program. And frankly, I've seen and purchased courses that don't even come close to capturing what you'll learn in Hidden Story Power that go for $2,000 on the open market, but not this one. So what is it? Is it $1,000? Again, maybe one day I'll wake up and it's going to dawn on me that I should be charging $1,000 for this material because it would be an incredible deal. And it's not even that. So here's the price, only because Wendy asked me to do a special deal for you guys. She kind of twisted my arm like she said at the beginning. So I'm not sure how she sweet-talked me into it, maybe because she's got awesome hair. But it's not even $500. It's just $197 for the next couple days, okay? So to get started right away, go to hiddenstorypower.com/go and click on the Add to Cart button that you'll see there on the page. So hiddenstorypower.com/go. And there's a button right below this video too. So now let me share with you the best part. When you invest today, in addition to these powerful 10 hours of in-depth story training, you're also going to get these 5 valuable bonuses. The first bonus is our famous video story showcase. So we've actually spent hours scouring the internet for great examples of businesses telling their story on video, and we've found more than 30 amazing examples that we've collected together into a story showcase in the membership area. So we dissect each one, we show you how they're telling their story, what they're doing, and give you the key takeaways for each. So this is going to be a huge inspiration for you as you make your way with stories. So bonus 2 is Matthew Peters' mobile video ignition for YouTube. So in session 4, we teach you how to tell your story on video. So this amazing bonus from Matthew Peters of Expert Video Empire covers everything that you'll need to know about setting up your YouTube channel and getting your videos out into the world if you want to do that yourself. So this bonus has never been available outside of Matthew's $247 mobile video ignition program. The third bonus you're going to receive is Stephen Washer's The Video Brain. So as you get better at telling your story on video, you're naturally going to want to spread your wings and do fancier things. And the Video Brain is an 8-step system that will take you from novice shooter to pro videographer in just 29 days, teaching you the core principles of production that apply across the entire video universe. So you're going to gain some specific tools that will make your productions look as professional as they need to in any given situation. And you'll have the flexibility to change styles as easily as you say roll them. So this alone is a $97 value right here. Next up is that most people neglect their voice. They forget to warm up before they get in front of the camera or on stage or give a big presentation in a boardroom, okay? And as a result, their performance isn't as powerful as it could have been. So your fourth bonus is the Ariella approach from award-winning performer and international authority on vocal empowerment, Ariella Forstein. So this is a powerful set of audio vocal exercises and warm-ups to make sure that you've got the chops to tell your story and be heard. So this amazing and valuable material has never been released to the public before, but it's yours free as part of Hidden Story Power. And bonus number 5 is complimentary access to the private Facebook group only for Hidden Story Power students and alumni. So basically, you've got access not just to me, but the brains of hundreds of Hidden Story Power alumni. So over the past months, my brilliant and generous students have turned this group into a resource that will quickly become indispensable as the go-to place for instant feedback on your story ideas and structure. So a lot of the students have said that being in the group, they would have paid for the cost of the program alone just to get into the group. So this has to be my favorite bonus. And the next bonus is quarterly story celebrations. So I know it's one thing to be at home and crafting your story, and it's another thing to have a place to share your story with the world. So once a quarter, we get together and do a story celebration where I give you 5 minutes to tell your story and 5 minutes for feedback. And you'll get my feedback and the feedback of everybody else on the call to make your story better and to make sure it's really resonating and hit home. Okay, so recapping, you're going to get what you're getting here is the full Hidden Story Power training, over 18 hours of in-depth story training, plus 5 bonuses, almost $300 in extra value. The Video Story Showcase, Stephen Washer's The Video Brain, Matthew Peters' Mobile Video Ignition for YouTube, the Ariella Approach, vocal exercises and warm-ups, access to our private Facebook group, quarterly story celebrations. And when you invest today, you're also going to get this extra bonus that I saved for last because it's the most powerful bonus of all, and it's only available on this call. So this bonus is called Brand New You, and it's going to explain why the biggest thing holding most people back is their brand, but they don't know it. So all they know is that something doesn't feel right, so they hesitate and they delay, and they put off doing the work to build their business or career. So in this bonus, which is only available during this call, I'm going to take you through a series of transformative exercises designed to reveal the key elements of your ideal personal brand. So this is a brand that's going to instantly position you as a leader in your field and bring the clients, the business partners, the deals, and the income that you want, while bestowing on you the huge impact and authority that you deserve. So this bonus is worth $97 in its own right, and it's 9 in-depth videos on business and personal branding, and it's the missing link that will turbocharge your stories by allowing you to step into the role of storyteller and messenger, and it's only available on this call. So that brings the real value of the bonuses that you'll receive when you invest in Hidden Story Power up to over $500. So when you invest $197 today, I want you to know that you're doing so with 100% security because you're covered by our no questions asked 30-day money-back guarantee. If you take the time to go through our course and decide that you don't like it or we're full of it or you just don't like your own stories, then just return it at any stage within 30 days and Candace is going to arrange a full refund. So I think you'll agree with me that it's time for you to finally step off the content treadmill and into the spotlight by telling the stories that will lift you above the white noise and into that 1% of online businesses who get the premium clients, the exposure, the coverage, the book deals, the stages, the authorities, and the success. And you don't have to go it alone. For just a couple $100, you can join us in this in-depth training that not only shows you the path, but will gather a community of people around you who have all started to see stories everywhere, who are actively using story in their business, and who can support and uplift you in creating a business you love, a business that's centered around you and your story. And we even get together for those virtual story celebrations once a quarter, where you've got the opportunity to share your story live with the community and get my personal feedback and the feedback of the community. So if all this sounds good, then go to hiddenstorypower.com/go and get started. So remember that you have until the end of this call to get the brand new You personal branding module. So now it's time to hit the Q&A and to answer all of your questions about story and about the Hidden Story Power program. So while Wendy's gathering the first questions to answers, I just wanted to quickly share what one of my students had to say about working with me. She said, just purchased Hidden Story Power yesterday and have Module 1 under my belt. I realize my life is overflowing with experiences for stories. I can't write them down fast enough. And Emily said it took me 10 months to figure out my movement, my platform, and now I'm in total alignment with my message. Your Hidden Story Power is one of the best trainings I've ever taken. I've been able to craft my story that makes sense on my new website. I can't wait to have a VIP day with you in the near future. So a lot of other testimonials here. This is a course that I love because within a week of starting, a lot of people are sharing their stories on the Facebook group, and that's really, really cool to see, just to see the stories happening. So hey Wendy, time for Q&A. I think you're still muted. Got to unmute yourself first.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right, fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing all this valuable information, Marisa. And Marisa is so on target with what she's talking about because I know personally when I started sharing my story of my background and how I got started and how I was dubbed the queen of cold calling, my business really took off. And whatever it is you're doing, whether you're making prospecting calls or you're actually meeting with your prospects or you're networking or you're looking to generate referrals or you're doing marketing, social media, certainly on your website, your stories are so very powerful. And that's why I invited Marisa to be here today, because telling your story is what's going to make the difference. It's what's going to differentiate you from everybody else in the entire world. So I do want to encourage each and every one of you to take advantage of this very generous offer that I wrestled Marisa to the ground to make for us all today. And thank you, Marisa, for being so accommodating to me to make this special offer for my...
You're welcome. You're welcome.
hiddenstorypower.com/go. So go there now and take advantage of this offer. And we do have questions. I'm going to look in the chat box here. If you have questions about anything that Marisa was talking about or your stories, please type them into the chat box.
Sure, I see a lot of questions coming through, but first I wanted to welcome Marvin and Christine to Hidden Story Power. So welcome Marvin and Christine. Congratulations for joining. I look forward to hearing your stories.
Fabulous. I want to share something that Todd said. He said storytelling may be even more powerful in B2B because most of the competitive messaging is so boring and sterile, which is very true.
Yes, it is very true. And I do see a couple questions here. One is from Carol who says, you know, do we get the brand new You module right away and are all the bonuses available right away? So yes, for Hidden Story Power, all the bonuses are available as soon as you sign into the membership area. So you'll get the brand new You module. You'll also get the the video showcase and all the other bonuses kind of right there on a bonuses tab. So as soon as you sign up, you'll have module 1 and all the bonuses, and then we'll continue to deliver the course to you over the next month. All right, so I see a question here too from, let's see, from Carol, who says, does this work for selling physical products too? So absolutely. A lot of physical products have a story behind them. You know, the story of how they were discovered or invented or made. And by telling that story, you know, your product becomes more interesting, because if there's a bunch of other people in your industry making the same kind of product, what's going to differentiate your product from everybody else's? So a story, like if you look at Apple, that's a company that's based on story, right? Instead of doing an MP3 player, they built an iPod. They revolutionized the way that music was delivered on portable devices, right? And that's really helped them gain, you know, market share as the #1 music player. So they've been like #1 for 5 years because they've told stories. Every time Steve Jobs releases a new product in the marketplace, he tells the story of how that product was developed, how they thought about the idea for the product. You know, he doesn't just say, here's the iPad, cool, go have fun with it and buy it, right? He kind of builds up a whole background and story and how this product is unique, how it's an innovation, why they wanted to kind of figure out how to make it work, and all the kind of R&D that went into making it happen. And that makes a massive, massive difference. So I see here that someone wants to know what the site is again. It's hiddenstorypower.com/go. There's actually a button right below the video here in the chat. And I also wanted to welcome Paul to the course. So welcome, Paul. All right. You see a question, Wendy?
Yeah, there's a question here from Corazon, and if I mispronounce your name, Corazon, please forgive me. What is the delivery mode when we sign up?
Sure. So all the courses are delivered in video training with slides, very similar to what you saw today, but you'll also have downloadable videos, downloadable audios, transcripts, and worksheets. So you get video, downloadable audio, and video, transcripts, and worksheets. So you've got a lot of different ways to enjoy the content. And I see someone's also asking, Austin, once we make the purchase, will we have access to the content indefinitely? Yes, you have lifetime access to the content, including any changes or updates that I make to the product. I always give people access for life and just say, you know, even if I totally redo the product and charge more money for it in the future, you're still going to have access to it. So I wanted to welcome Fred, Savannah, Carol, and Tommy to Hidden Story Power. So welcome, and Manu. So welcome to all of you as well. I'll see you in the Facebook group. Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, we have a question from Gregory who says, can I use these techniques to help me write a small book as a calling card to leave with prospects?
Definitely. So module 6 of the course is called How to Use Your Story in Talks, Trainings, and Info Products. And a book is kind of like an info product. So once you tell stories, you'll notice that you're going to have a lot of different versions of your story. There's the sort of like 30-minute or 60-minute version of your story for a keynote talk if you're a speaker. There's the book-long version of your story for a book, or the chapter-long version of your story. There's the 30-minute version of your story that you tell to inspire people when you first meet them. There's a lot of different versions of your story. And the best version of your story kind of depends on where you're going to use the story. So yes, definitely. And the more you share the background of what you do, the more you differentiate yourself in the market from other companies who are just doing business as usual, just selling products and not doing any of that.
And I'll share with everyone, my very first book, which came out in 2000, was Cold Calling for Women. And that book was about how my background as a ballet dancer was just like cold calling. And I walked people through how to cold call and compare it. I tell my story about being a ballet dancer. And so it definitely works. We have a question here from D. Caldwell. Does storytelling work in promotional print material? Do you teach how to convert storytelling to short copy? Is this effective?
Yes, so storytelling definitely works in short print material. And you could have stories that are just a single sentence long. One great example is I think there's a woman who teaches people how to lose weight, and she says, you're looking at half of me. I lost half of my body weight. Now I'm going to show you how to as well. So I think it's a lot more compelling to work with someone who has actually experienced some of the transformation that your product or your business or your service offers. So absolutely. So I show a lot of different ways to use story, to tell a story, to do it on your website, to do it in your videos, to do it in your emails, to do it in your social media. This is not a copywriting course, you know. I'm not specifically talking about copy, but I'm showing you how to integrate storytelling into your marketing. So that's very, very applicable to all of the copy that you write as well. And most copywriting is storytelling. So it's very much, you know, a similar kind of thing. And I do show you how to use storytelling in a lot of different specific contexts. Not just the first course is how to find your story and how to structure it and how to express it. And the second half of the course is how to use it in specific contexts and details that you know to translate that story into, say, video or social media or a talk or a training or a product and all of that. So yes, and welcome to Larry for. Welcome to Hidden Story Power, Larry. Congrats on buying.
So we have a message here from Manu who says, thank you for the gifts of empowerment.
You are welcome, for sure. And I think that there were some other questions that came in earlier, and I've been trying to kind of monitor them as I was talking. So let me go find one. And also congratulations to Casey. So congratulations, Casey, for standing up. So Bob says most business websites are self-centered. They should be more customer-centered, about you and your, not we and our, i.e. who cares? So that's a really good question, Bob. So a lot of people think that storytelling is very selfish and it's self-aggrandizing, so they don't care. But storytelling is actually a lot of times the bridge or the pathway that allows an audience member to see themselves inside of your product and see themselves inside of your business or your offering. So it's not actually all that about you by telling a story, and people make that mistake of being like, let me get out the family photo album and tell you my whole life story. And if you do that, then it is who cares. But if you tell a story that makes people connect to what you do in a way that goes beyond logic, it goes beyond features and benefits, then it actually resonates with customers more, because everybody else is marketing with like, buy my widget, it's made out of stainless steel titanium, and you know, it's got this nice latch that opens and closes it. And after a while, that kind of infomercial gets tiring. So people want to do business with companies that actually reflect their values. A lot of our buying decisions are based out of personal self-identity and what we think about ourselves and what that product will allow us to do. So this isn't about being self-centered and being like, our mission is to do this. It's about creating connection. And when you talk about, say, your experience as a child, you know, then you allow your customer to think about themselves as a child. If you look at even big product brands, say luxury brands like, say, whiskey or jewelry or fine perfume, a lot of times it's story-based advertising. You see someone experiencing the product, and that really makes a much bigger impact than regular advertising, and it's not at all selfish. It's actually about creating connection, which is the opposite. So quick question here comment to Stephen. Congratulations, Stephen. Awesome. And Casey's asking, I just joined late due to a networking meeting. I brought your product even though I only saw half of the presentation. Great. And will I be able to view this again? Yes, there's going to be a replay of this presentation right on this page. As soon as we end the line, you're going to be able to watch it again if you want to share it with people. And we'll send you a link to the replay too.
I have a question from Micheline, who wants to know, how do we find out about the fast action bonuses?
Yes, so we've got it set up. You know, I said there's a fast action bonus for the brand new you module on personal branding, because your story is part of your personal brand. And a lot of the biggest CEOs, corporate executives, coaches, you know, whoever, are people who've got a powerful story and tell their story in business. So as soon as you sign up on this call, you're going to receive a login to the membership site. And that login, once you log on, immediately you're going to see that bonus in the membership site. So it's there waiting for you as soon as you sign up and then log on to the membership site. So that's it. Okay.
So I'm scrolling down to the end. Date Night said, thank you for sparking a few ideas for my site and for my business.
I see one from Todd from a lot earlier who says, I think my struggle here is to correlate how to mentally get a story to get individuals to answer the phone, return an email, or a voice message. So here's the thing. A lot of people just assume that because you leave, like you're cold calling, and you leave someone a message to come out, that they're just going to return your call. And that's not necessarily the case. People aren't just going to return your call just because you leave a call to them. So sometimes if you tell a story, just even you could do, it doesn't have to be even your story. It could be the story of somebody else that you just got off the phone with, and how this one thing that you want to share with them did something, changed that person's perspective, or allowed them to accomplish something in their business that they hadn't accomplished before. One of the best ways to use storytelling in marketing and sales is to use it to answer people's objections. So what you do is you tell a story that actually gets at the objection that somebody has and allows them to really understand or kind of see past their objection. So what I would do is figure out what's the objection people have to getting on the phone with you, or what are they worried about or concerned about? What are they not feeling yet? How can you tell a story that's going to ease that? Okay?
Okay, and we have Date Night saying, thank you for having a replay. Those 8 questions are priceless! Exclamation mark. I will be reviewing this again.
Awesome. And I see Date Night also wanted to know if I'm doing a TED Talk. So I haven't done a TED Talk yet, but what I will say is that if any of you are TED fans, and I imagine some of you here in the audience are TED fans, that you know, a lot of TED Talks are story-based. People don't just go there and for 17 minutes just dump information to people. I mean, one of my favorite ones by a woman named Jill, I forgot her last name, but she had like a brain, something in her brain where the left half of the brain shut down, or the right half, the left half shut down, and so she was just in a world of experiencing things. And as a brain scientist, she found this fascinating to learn kind of what the left brain did and what the right brain did. And she tells this story about her brain. It's not an aneurysm. Maybe it's a stroke. And it was amazing because she used that context of her experience of understanding the difference between left brain and right brain. So that's really kind of like remarkable, and for a topic like brain science that most people wouldn't be interested in, it really allowed people to go deeper. You know, it allowed people to kind of connect with that topic and the science behind it. And I see Michael asking, what is a TED Talk? So TED means technology, entertainment, and design, I believe. And so if you go to TED.com, they've got a lot of streaming video, 17-minute talks by leaders in the field, and they're really good talks that use a lot of stories.
We have a question from Barb who wants to know, how long do we have to sign up and get the special pricing and the bonus?
So the offer is open for a few days. Murray, can you tell me how long the offer is open exactly? I'm not sure. He's going to let me know. It's open for 7 days. So you've got 7 days to sign up. The fast action bonus of Brand New You is only available on this call, because I know I like to reward people for taking fast action and just diving in, and sometimes when you delay I find that people just forget about it, and it's like the choice is made for you because you've forgotten, and then the window is over and all of that. So you've got until Tuesday at midnight of next week. So that's what we've got right now, Tuesday at midnight of next week, to kind of sign up. All right, and I also see, and I was trying to track some of the questions that were coming in earlier. It was hard because I was trying to talk too. So Todd says, getting in front of them to be able to tell them the story. That's the hard part. So I totally understand that, Todd, and I know how challenges is to not just tell a story, but to be the storyteller, to be the messenger. And that's why I give you the Brand New You bonus, the personal branding bonus, as well as a whole thing on how to tell your story on video, how to tell your story on talks and trainings. I give you vocal exercises. I give you performance strategies. You know, I go deep into how to not just tell the story and what to say, but how to actually be the storyteller and step into that role of the storyteller. So we cover a lot of that in the course, and we also give you the story celebration bonus. And the story celebration bonus is really going to help you actually give a context for sharing your story in a very safe space before you try to do it in a business space. And once you do that, you can really get the practice and get the feedback and get the encouragement and hopefully gain some confidence along the way. So awesome. And I am trying to scroll through because I saw these questions coming in during the event and trying to make sure.
We have a comment from Casey. Jill Bolt Taylor, she had a stroke. Yes. And wrote My Stroke of Insight.
That's the one I was talking about. Absolutely. Yes. All right. So I'm sorry if you mentioned a question earlier and we haven't covered it yet. then let me know and we'll do what we can to get it. So let's see. Kathy says, videos, blogs, white papers, webinars. Oh no, I just lost it because when someone lost it, so I'm going to try again to get to it. So it's a pretty long comment roll, so sorry about that. Kathy says, videos, blogs, white papers, webinars. Who's got the time? I have this on the background, but I'm doing the actual work at the same time. So Kathy, I mean, there's a lot of different strategies for doing things like videos and blogs and webinars, and you don't have to necessarily do all of those things, but you can do some, and I usually recommend choosing 1 or 2 channels and doing them really, really well. And if you do 1 or 2 channels and do them really, really well, then you're finding a way to market your business. But I don't know any other, I don't know any other like business in the world that doesn't have to invest time in marketing. So yes, it's hard to kind of invest in marketing and also in service delivery and fulfillment and all the other things that you do. But as your business grows, you can hire people to support you, hire people who can help you with the marketing. And in the meantime, if you want your business to grow, I just don't think there's any way of getting around marketing. And a lot of the most successful businesses on the planet spend between 20 to 50% of their time on marketing. And they can often spend between 20 to 50% of their budget on client acquisition. And that's really, really normal, isn't it, Wendy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you put a video on your website, you don't have to do it again. It's there and it's generating, if it's a good video and it generates leads for you, it works for a period of time. You don't have to do it every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of what you can do, these are materials that you put out into the world once. And that's something that you can then kind of reap the returns on kind of over and over again. So this is something that, yeah, you know, it takes a little bit of time to tell your story. It takes a little bit of time to market your business. But I imagine if you're in business for yourself or you want to grow your career, then, you know, you might be willing to make a little bit of investment to get bigger and better results and bigger and better returns. And, you know, I know when I started doing this stuff, my business tripled 2 years in a row, and it's going to at least double again, if not triple again. And that's kind of remarkable. So that's a really, really good result. So the next question I've got is from Todd, who says, with the shorter attention span that people have, and from a cold calling perspective, what is your suggestion about how long a story can be if we want it to be read or listened to on a voicemail? So if you're on a voicemail, you probably want the voicemail to be just 30 to 60 seconds. So I think I gave you an example of a story that you could tell within a single sentence. And that doesn't mean you don't have a longer version of the story. But you might just say, okay, you know, hi, Wendy. You know, and I don't know what you're selling, but something like, hi, Wendy. I just got off the phone with someone in your industry, and I told them this, and they realized that. So I wanted to share this thing with you, too. So if you've, you know, got time in the next 2 days, you know, give me a call back at this number. So you've just told a story, right? And you've built curiosity and intrigue, because a lot of the best stories from a marketing perspective, you don't give away everything in the story. You create what's called an open loop. And the open loop creates kind of interest and intrigue that gets them reading or taking the next action. So what I would do probably on a phone call is I'd create an open loop. You know, for example, I just sent out an email this morning, and I don't know what kind of response that's gotten, but I said the only 4 fonts that you need to build a site, and I've got to figure out, remember the exact title of it, but it's the only 4 fonts that you need to build a site that gets results. And we actually did this on a training 2 weeks ago. That one sentence, it's kind of a story, right? You know, discover the only 4 fonts that you need to do a site that gets this result, right? And as soon as we got on the webinar, everyone's like, what about the fonts? What about the fonts? I want to know about the fonts. So we basically created this open loop that gave interest on fonts, that font topic. And people were dying for that particular topic because I just created a loop, and it was something that interested them that they wanted to know about. So that's a storytelling technique. So the only 4 fonts that you need for your site to be taken seriously. So I wanted to welcome Austin, Rodney, and Greg to Hidden Story Power 2, and Winnie as well. So Austin, Rodney, Greg, and Winnie, welcome to Hidden Story Power, and I look forward to reading your stories in the Facebook group and also on the live line. And this is just a reminder that you've gotten to the end of this webinar to get the fast action bonus of Brand New You, the personal branding kind of mini course that we include to help you not just tell a great story, but step into the shoes of a storyteller and a messenger. And we were scrolling up the chat, and we saw you know, a few other questions here. And Kevin said, the other thing I'm thinking is that once my story is created, how do I get a story in front of potential buyers? So, like I said, the first half of the course covers how to find and tell your story, and the second half is about the specific marketing context that you can use stories in. So one great way is a video on your homepage or a video on the about page of your website. Another great way is if you've got any kind of email list or following, like Wendy does, which is how you're all here today, you could tell a story in those videos. I imagine, Wendy, some of the emails that you sent about this event incorporated story, didn't they?
Absolutely.
So that was an example. Yeah, so that was an example of Wendy told stories that got over 200 of you here on the line today using her email list. Another way to do it is on social media channels. You can do it every time you give a talk or a training. You can do it on your products, whether it's a book or print materials, whether it's a video course, whether it's something like Hidden Story Power. You'll notice that I model storytelling throughout the entire course. Everything that I teach you the thing, and then I tell you a story to demonstrate the thing. And the really interesting thing about that is that increases retention by 80%. So if I just trained you like an academic, like I was reading from a textbook, you wouldn't remember anything that I said. But because I trained with stories and I did it throughout this entire webinar, you're going to remember a lot more than if I had just taken a more conventional approach. So if you want your customers to get more action out of your products, even once they've bought, first of all, it's getting them to buy, and then once they've bought, if you want them to actually use the product, you could tell stories about other people who use the product and what they got from using the product. If there's a common kind of challenge people have to using the product, you could tell a story that demystifies that challenge. So, for example, a lot of you want to know, well, how is story relevant to business? So I answered the objection at the end of the webinar, and I told you my story of how I thought I had a story that wasn't relevant and how I found out that it really was relevant. So that's an example of using a story to illustrate a specific challenge or objection to get someone to maybe give it a shot or also to use it and do the work after the fact. And that's when you start to get testimonials and things from people who've actually gotten results from your product and stories that you can tell, because you've not only encouraged the purchase of what you do, but you've encouraged the consumption of it too.
So we have a question here from Moshar, who said he couldn't attend the webinar from the beginning. Will you give us a replay?
Yes, absolutely. There's going to be a replay right on the same page that you're at now. Immediately as soon as this event is over, you're going to be able to watch the replay. So that's instant. And I also see Carol wanted to know, does that mean that video is a superior way to tell your story to other kinds of content? And I would say any kind of more direct channel where people can see you. We're here doing a video hangout, a live Google Hangout on air, and so you can see me. So if I'm telling a story and you can actually see me, that's more powerful, right? So then if you just didn't see me at all and just heard my voice. Also, if you're giving a stage presentation or some kind of talk in front of people, that's a powerful place to share stories. But even if you're on the phone or you're in an email, that's powerful too. So, of course, it's more powerful if people are there in front of you, and then on video, and then in some of the other channels, but it's all powerful, So I see that Autograph wants to know, how do I get the 8-question list? I'd really love to have that to ponder. So we sent you an email this morning with a link to download handouts for this webinar. So just go back to that email and you'll be able to download the workbook that we gave you as you went through this webinar, and you'll have it. And the email was sent out at about 6 a.m. this morning. So I see that Ellen has just joined Hidden Story Power, so I wanted to welcome Ellen to the course. So welcome, Ellen. Let's get those stories coming out. And a quick reminder, I think we're getting towards the end of the questions that we've seen in the chat. And remember, if you've got a question, now's the time. So just a reminder that you've got until the end of this call to grab the fast action bonus of the brand new you personal branding mini course. All right, Wendy, do you have any other questions or any stories about story in your business and how you've used
it? The story of my business, and I mentioned this earlier, my business really took off when I started talking about my background. I used to be a dancer. I was not supposed to be the queen of cold calling. I was supposed to be a ballerina. And I never talked about that because I thought people wouldn't take me seriously if they knew I used to be a dancer instead of a high-powered business executive. But what I found was when I started talking about my experience as a dancer and what I learned from that and what I took from that and how I brought it into my work, uh, people started listening in a different way. And so that was a lesson to me to you're looking for the people that are looking for you. And if people don't like your stories, they're not good customers for you. They're not good prospects. They're not going to be good customers. So you're looking for the people that are looking for you. And when you tell your story, the people that resonate with your story are the right people for you. That's what I learned from telling my story of my background as a dancer.
Absolutely, and I wanted to give a quick example from, the world of politics. And, I think we were all taught to be very professional, for example, to kind of button up and wear a suit and to hide our emotions and to be very professional when we were growing up. And I don't know how, I'm 36, I might look a little bit younger, but I'm 36. When I was growing up, I was told that emotions sometimes are bad, or being personal in business is unprofessional. And I think we were taught that. But here's the thing, everybody were children at one point, everybody were teenagers, everybody's made mistakes, and businesses make mistakes all the time. And I've seen businesses who had fiascos or scandals, say, on Twitter with somebody posting something that was inappropriate. And the businesses that just gloss over that mistake as if it didn't happen, there's a huge kind of pushback and outcry from people because of that. But the businesses that say, look, I'm really sorry, we made a mistake. I know this is totally offensive, and there's no excuse for it. That's accepted. So when companies make mistakes, if they come out and just say, look, wow, we just made a huge mistake, people are a lot more likely to be forgiven than if they try to pretend like it didn't happen. And I'm going to tell the story of two presidents, like Bill Clinton and Obama, right? President Obama. So Bill Clinton, had all kinds of scandals, right? And one of the scandals during his campaign, people asked him if he smoked pot. And he said, yes, I smoked pot, but I didn't inhale. Right? And that's clearly like a lie, right? Would he smoke pot and not inhale? Probably not. And President Obama, when asked the same question, said, yes, I did. I tried it out when I was a teenager. Like most people, a lot of people have tried it out at one time or another. So Bill's response has become famous. People laugh at it. They make fun of it. He had less credibility by basically lying instead of being honest than Obama, who just said, yes, I did. And I tried that out. It's in my past, I don't do anything like that anymore. And by being honest and transparent and about what his past was like, and he wrote books about his past. He said he drank and he smoked pot on occasion. He was still not elected as president. So those demons in his past, it's like when you hide the demons in your past, I think that's when it tends to come back to bite you more than when you're honest and when you share it. And I don't know if any of you have watched the movie 7 Mile or 9 Mile by Eminem. And there's this great scene in the movie where Eminem is up against another rapper, and this other rapper has everything. His house, he's rich, his parents are supporting him. Eminem, he lives with a mom who's a drunkard and a little bit abusive, and his girlfriend just, got with another guy, and all of this stuff. And so the one rapper, is coming out at Eminem, and Eminem decides, look, I'm just going to say all of this stuff. My life is a mess, and I'm just going to rap about how my life is a mess and how, this person just stole my boyfriend, and my mom is living in a trailer park, and we're getting thrown out. So he raps about all of this, and he says, and I bet this other guy who grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth can't say anything like this. And what he does, he took all the ammunition away from the other rapper, and he ended up kind of winning the rap off. And that catapulted his fame by being real, by saying, you know what? Where I came from, I have humble roots, and I honestly, it's nothing but me you're seeing here in front of you. And a lot of the stories of big high-power corporate executives, they were poor growing up, they didn't have anything, and they worked their way up. They worked their way out of situations that weren't very good, and that gives such a huge amount of credibility and rapport just to say, I haven't figured all that out, or I had some hard knocks in my life and I rose above them. And if you take that versus the corporate executive that just says, I was always rich, I always had everything coming to me, I went to the Ivy League, I was bred for this position, like, who are you going to connect with more? Who are you going to feel? Whose heart are you going to feel? Who do you want to do business? Who would you trust to kind of represent you when the going got bad or something happened, right? So I just wanted to share that because I really think that we're in a world where authenticity and transparency is the name of the day, and the corporations that try to pretend like no problems ever had or they haven't made mistakes and sweep it under the rug are the ones that are losing out. And the ones that just say, here's the challenge we have, or there's this problem with my product, or there's this problem with my service, and we're working to fix it, are the ones that win out. Okay? Awesome. And I see that Corazon said, excellent message. Looking forward to learning more about how to utilize personal stories in our nonprofit disaster preparedness mission. God bless. And I see that Michael said, I'm impressed by your material and especially the way that you deliver it. Thanks for being quite nice. Besides being quite nice, you're very credible too. So thank you so much. And I hope you can see that I'm trying my best to be a real person here, not just like the trainer on the pedestal, but giving it to you for real. So I wanted to just say that, in copywriting there's an expression to make the skeletons dance. This is one of the biggest techniques in copywriting, is make the skeleton dance, because everyone has a skeleton in the closet. And a lot of times when you bring it front and center, you're actually connecting with the fears or the challenges or the reservations or the reason why someone would need your product in the first place. And that's the kind of secret. It's like when you hide something, a lot of times it becomes worse. But when you reveal it, it diffuses tension and creates connection like nothing else. So just a quick reminder that we are bringing this webinar to a close. And I think in a couple of minutes, and so I'll give you until 11 a.m. Pacific, top of the hour, to sign up and get that fast action bonus. And I see that Kim has just come through the doors to sign up before the fast action bonus is over. So just a few more minutes after the call ends. And I did want to say one other thing. It's like, a lot of people will say your product is the most expensive product in the industry. So instead of trying to hide the fact that your product is the most expensive product in the industry, say, yes, my product is the most expensive product in the industry, and here's the reason why, and tell the story. So in the Hidden Story Power Showcase, you're going to see some examples of, I think, the crafting of a, what kind of shoe is it? It's not a Louis Vuitton shoe. It's like a famous shoe that cost, $500. I think it is Louis Vuitton, like $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 for a pair of shoes. And they actually show the crafting of each shoe by hand and the stitching of the shoe by hand. So if they say, yes, we've got the most expensive shoes in the market, and here's why. There's a craftsman in Italy who's been making these shoes his entire life, who's every stitch by stitch by stitch crafting the shoe. And that's what's called kind of like a maker video, showing the process behind how you make it, that can a lot of time justify the fees that you charge. So if people don't know what goes behind the scenes, they might be thinking you're kind of factory producing something in China when you're really crafting it by hand. And people like that. They like to see how something's made. They like to see the story behind the products that they're wearing or consuming. And that really gives you the edge. So I see you nodding your head, Wendy.
Yes, Michael says, it's been quite a while since I've seen someone as authentic as you. I will buy.
Awesome, Michael.
Yeah.
I look forward to working with you and seeing you in the program, and most importantly, hearing your story, because that's what it's all about, okay? And, Murray's going to show the video of making the Louis Vuitton shoes, just to give you an example of how this can work, of how you can justify high expenses. So I'm going to play this for you now just to give you a taste of what this can look like. And Murray, do you have the sound too of this? Okay, so we're not going to be able to play the sound right now, but as you can see, they're showing you how this shoe is made. So this is a $1,000 shoe. I don't know, I've never bought a $1,000 pair of shoes. Have you, Wendy?
No, I have not.
I spent some money on a pair of shoes before, but not a $1,000 pair of shoes. So if you're Louis Vuitton and you want to sell a $1,000 pair of shoes, how would you do it? Could you, and this is a visual story, right? It's a 5-minute video that's showcasing everything that goes into the making of the shoe. And by the end of it, you're thinking like, wow, I would spend $1,000 on this pair of shoe. I mean, look at the amount of effort that's going into it. And this is just a visual demonstration of stories. So there's ways to convey this visually. There's ways to show this in print materials. There's ways to show it in a talk or a training or info product. There's so many ways to demonstrate your story of what makes your products and your services truly exceptional, or what makes your background unique. And that's a really, really cool thing to do in business. And it's what makes the truly great brands, the Apples, the Louis Vuittons, and even the individual brands of individual coaches or authors or speakers or thought leaders or media personalities. Or I saw you guys giving links of TED Talk of like a Simon Sinek, who share why they do what they do. They share their passion. Like, you can tell this guy really likes shoes. He's going through so much effort to make this pair of shoes, right? Isn't that kind of neat, Wendy?
It's very neat, and what could be finer than a fabulous pair of shoes?
And I just wanted to give this example because I see people asking, does this work for physical products? Does this work for business to business? And the answer is always yes. Like if you want to stand out in a competitive market, if you want to compete beyond price tag, if you want to be more than just a commodity where someone's got a ceiling on how much they're willing to pay for it, then the story behind the making of what you do, the story behind what makes it special, the story behind why you do it, the story behind the problem that it solves, any of those stories, the story about what you most love about what you do can really transform your product from like a commodity that's only sold with a price ceiling on it to something that people are willing to shell out the big bucks for. And that's a really cool thing when you tune into that in your business. So thank you so much for coming out. And I think on that note, we are going to end the webinar. And remember, you've got a few more minutes to sign up and grab that fast action bonus. So thank you so much for turning out. And even if you don't choose to do Hidden Story Power with me, and it's a really cool program, and it's a very honestly modest investment at $197, including the video showcases where once a quarter you get to share your story and get my feedback. Even if you don't do that, I recommend that you try. You leave this webinar and you try to share a story in some context, whether it's on your next sales phone call, whether it's on your next social media post or in your next email. Just give it a try and see how people respond to you. And of course, it takes some practice. There are some tips and tricks to getting it right and to be as impactful as possible and to make that story relevant to you in business. But give it a shot and see what happens, because that kind of proof, that sort of social proof that you'll get is one of the best reinforcements that you're on the right track. And I see that Peter has jumped in, so welcome, Peter, to Hidden Story Power. And with that, I'm just going to say go out there and live your message. And thank you so much, Wendy, for hosting me. This was really a lot of fun.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here, Marisa. Great content. Again, I want to urge everybody, if you haven't done so, you've got, 2 minutes to take advantage of this special offer, and I do want to encourage you to do so, because people know who you are. You can hide it, or you can reveal it. But people always know who you are. So they either know who you are in a good way because you're revealing, or they know in a bad way because you're trying to hide. And so Marisa is an expert in this area. That's why I invited her to be here today. Great content, and thank you for putting together this special offer for us. And I'm really happy that all the people that have taken advantage of it have taken advantage of it. And the rest of you join in too.
Awesome. All right, and you do have 7 days. You've got until midnight on, is that Wednesday or midnight on Tuesday of next week, I believe. And I will see you again shortly. So I look forward to continuing to get to know you guys both in Hidden Story Power, as well as, just through Live Your Message and all the great content and materials and stories that we share and post. So thank you so much for coming out. I know your time is incredibly valuable. And like I said, just try this. Try telling your story today in some context and see the response that you get. Okay? All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.